Madam Secretary, I want to focus on your 2021 report on climate-related financial risk. I have expressed in this committee before that it is implausible, if not far-fetched, to suggest that climate change, a phenomenon that occurs over decades, could somehow suddenly overwhelm the banking system, insurance sector, or reinsurance sector. What evidence has FSOC found that banks, lenders, or insurers have ever mispriced weather risks so substantially that it would result in systemic risk?
Well, it's not just a matter of weather risks, which are clearly rising in severity and could have a significant impact on banking organizations, but there are also so-called transition risks that...
Right, so regulatory risks that the government could redirect capital away from fossil energy and increase inflation. Is that what you're referring to, transition risks?
It's an existential threat with respect to climate change of leaving our children and grandchildren with a planet that is all but uninhabitable.
Well, let's drill down on that. Let's drill down on that, reclaiming my time. In FSOC's report on climate-related financial risk, did FSOC consider the risk of overinvestment in novel, unproven, and highly risky speculative green assets and the risk of diverting investment away from stable, proven, and low-risk brown assets?
The FSOC and individual regulators are not telling banks what they should or should not do.
I think FSOC should consider overinvestment in risky assets. If in FSOC's consideration of climate-related financial risk, did FSOC consider the substantial risk that has actually now materialized, that overregulation of the fossil energy sector, ending Keystone, blocking lease sales on federal lands, constraining supply of energy, has actually undermined financial stability, specifically historic inflation and $4.37 a gallon gas?
I think we owe that to the failure of our domestic industry to ramp up production to pre-
I don't think that's what they say. I think they say they can't get approval, and when they can't ship through the Keystone Pipeline, and when they can't access capital because of ESG disclosure mandates, that's why we have a shortage of energy. Did FSOC consider that the SEC's ESG disclosure proposal designed to redirect capital away from fossil energy will increase the cost of energy, creating a greater risk to economic stability?
Look, investors with over $100 trillion worth of assets have said that in order to properly evaluate investments, they need disclosures about the risks that individual firms have with respect to climate. And regulators all around the world are acting to provide that information.
Will you commit to engaging Chairman Gensler in FSOC to assess the risks to our energy markets and exacerbating the inflation crisis posed by politicizing the allocation of capital through ESG regulation? And will the FSOC consider the risk of steering investors toward green or ESG firms that could make them riskier, not safer, by inflating their asset values?
Well, look, I think you should note that the largest banks in the United States and around the world voluntarily joined an alliance this past year to commit to forming their portfolios.
I'm asking you about financial risk. I'm asking you, Madam Secretary, I'm asking you about your job as chair of the FSOC to evaluate all financial risks. And I want to know whether you acknowledge that stocks in many ESG stocks in many ESG-related ETFs and investments trade at elevated price-to-earnings ratios and multiples because investment returns are sacrificed for non-pecuniary factors. Are you evaluating that risk to the financial system because returns are sacrificed?
We do look at asset valuations and recognize that significant shifts in them can be a risk to financial stability.
Finally, will you commit to never, as long as you are the Treasury Secretary and Chair of FSOC, to allow a single minute of time during any meeting of FSOC be devoted to the topic of abortion?
Abortion is not a topic that FSOC has looked at or that
I think the fact that there's a focus away from actual financial stability risks and towards things like abortion and meteorology means that we have our eye off the ball in FSOC. I yield back.
FSOC